Hello and welcome to the sixth episode of Racing with You ONRT. Today we've got Ibrahim Irfan. Um, just to give you a little bit of context about who he is, I think he can be best described as first and foremost the backbone of this podcast. And that is mainly because he is the one who organizes all the interviews. He's the one who, do I say convince people to come on?
Let's facilitate.
Okay, facilitate people to come on. He's the one who, just plants everything behind the scenes. And finally, we have him on. So, your main role, as I understand, is that you are the head of PR.
First of all, thank you, Danish, for having me here. It has been a while since I actually got a chance to properly meet you in person. Yeah, definitely has been a lot of people back and forth helping you out, getting the right people to you first before I have my own chance in the hot seat. Yeah, so the racing team as a whole is contains a lot of leaders who essentially are the backbone of the team, I would say. And in PR specifically, in public relations, it's broken down into two. So there's two leaders who essentially hold PR together.
Okay.
One is myself, and the other is Gabor. Gabor is essentially the lead of marketing and media, and I'm the one who's predominantly looking into sponsorship.
So you're the one who makes the deals.
I am the one who facilitates again. It is my job to be the one looking into any deals, events that the team can look into and see what's possible and what's best for the team.
Okay, so speaking about deals, what was the best deal that you made for the racing team?
So, funny enough, just to give you a bit more of a background on me, I'm now a second year student and I've been in the team since my second month in university. And in my first year, I was more of just a team member. I used to help out uh, with basically any work that was there to do, whether it be related to social media, marketing, website, events, anything really. But sponsorship is something that I had not really done much in my first year, and now I've been put into the hot seat of being taking over sponsorship. So it is quite a jump for me, and in the last, let's say, 6 months or so, I feel like I have learned a lot more than I previously anticipated going into the role. And from that, I feel like it really has to be my first deal that I had to close, which would be with Cascade. So, just to give you a bit more context on what Cascade really is, Cascade is a type of fund that's given by the university,
Mm-hmm.
and it is to those projects which essentially require a lot of funding, and these funding come from university alumni who are very generously donating to improve student experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first big, let's say, application that I had to do as the public relations lead and the sponsorship manager of the team. And that, I would say, took me a lot of iterations to convey my words carefully and correctly. And that is something I had learned in my first few months as going into this role.
So you learned what political correctness looks like.
Very good, very much, yes. And essentially how to speak to what I intend and how people would interpret my words,
Hmm.
essentially. And essentially learn to advertise the team for the way the team needs to be advertised, let's say.
You've basically learned the dark arts of persuasion in this project.
Yeah.
It's not the kind of skill set you expect to gain from a very engineering-based project like the racing team, is it?
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's not the typical type of skills that you expect when you're going into a predominantly engineering-based project like a racing team. But it is something that I feel like anyone can gain if they really want to put their put their mind into it. And it really speaks of how dynamic the team is because it's not just going into it and applying your mechanical, electrical, product design, and any other skills that you learn from your course. There's a lot more to learn.
Yeah, 100% agree. I mean, for everyone who looks at the racing team from the outside, they probably only see the engineers.
Exactly,
They
yeah.
don't see everyone else involved in it as well. So, especially the cost team, the finance team,
Hmm.
the PR team.
I mean, you can say for yourself as well as a personnel in the business team. So,
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I personally didn't think that this would be the business team was a thing
hmm
until who was it? I think it was Christopher Eason
yeah.
or it was Mateus, either one of them. Um, they just sent out an email saying, okay, this is what we have and
hmm
would like you to be a part of this. So yeah, that was absolutely amazing to know. So in total, how many deals did you close?
So that is a very good question, and I actually don't think I'm allowed to disclose that number.
That's fair enough. That is fair enough. But I'm assuming it's more than one, though, right?
It is more than one, I can tell you that.
Okay, that's fine. More than one, that's good. So, of those more than one deals that you have been able to close, what do you think was the most difficult one or the most challenging one?
Again, I would say it would be really, well, deals is quite a vague way to say exactly what I do in terms of being the sponsorship manager because um, a deal can essentially entail just approaching someone or an organization and introducing the team, or it can essentially elongate to maintaining that deal as well and maintaining that relation with that organization. So I would say if you want to take everything in total and as a whole, I would say again, Cascade would be the one that really comes to mind as it is not the typical sort of deal that you imagine when you're thinking of, oh yeah, sponsorship person. He goes up to, for example, GKN goes up to Mala and all these big companies and creates deals that essentially are very engineering sort of related.
Mm,
Um, that is almost your typical type of deal that you can think of. But there's also other things, for example, um, like I mentioned with Cascade, essentially um, liaising with the university and expressing what our goals are and what we want to achieve, along with explaining the nuances and all the uncertainties that come with having a racing team and telling them, yes, we are building something that's great, but again, we will have challenges which can have consequences in the future, and some larger than others. So it's essentially facilitating all of that, which I feel was quite challenging for me, especially being my first one that I had to deal with.
yeah, yeah, honestly, like I think the first project, let's say, is
hmm
always the hardest project because you basically
Exactly.
had absolutely no experience going into it.
Yeah,
But to be fair, closing that project, finishing off that project in the way that you did is a great thing to have. Because you not only were you new to it, but you also learned and were able to succeed in that
exactly.
project. So that's absolutely amazing. So you also spoke about the Marla sponsorship.
Yeah,
If I'm not wrong, I think Freddie told me this, but Marla are also the team who sponsor Ferrari.
they are the team who sponsor Ferrari. Yes, that's
So
true.
so Ferrari, in the sense, they sponsor Scuderia Ferrari, the F1 team.
Yeah.
When I first heard that, the first response was, how did PR manage this? So I think what I need to ask is, how did you manage it?
So I'm not quite sure of how this really relates to Ferrari.
No, as in, how did you get Marla as a sponsor?
All right, okay. So it really came about as Mola is a sponsor of the Formula Student UK championship as a whole,
Hmm.
and they had the sponsorship fund that they're giving to two teams who are participating in Formula Student for the next 2 years, and it really came about through applying through that and putting up a potent um, um, application really and seeing where that went. One thing that really surprised me is after the application stage, I was contacted by someone who really turned out to be an alumni of University of Nottingham, which was quite interesting. And I had a great conversation with him, essentially regarding the university as a whole after the interview, and he gave me some really nice tips on how to essentially approach university, and that is something I know this is not really related to Mala at the moment, but it's essentially something that, for example, I would say a lot of people who might be listening to this and anyone who's into engineering, it's really important to network and to essentially just speak, just go to someone and speak. And learn what they have to say, learn about their story, and take their 2 cents because that's really useful.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, coming back to the Marla sponsorship, it's essentially, as I said, it was a two-stage application process. The first was applying to a set of questions that they had, which we had quite an extensive answer to almost all of them. Many of them essentially written by myself. Others more technical based ones were delegated to those specialty leaders within the team. Um, and that's something again I did not expect as coming into the team. This was likely my second application at that moment, and first going into seeing the questions, I was like, oh, okay. I have very vague knowledge on many of these technical bits about the chassis, about the motors, for example, and I didn't really know much. So essentially, I wrote to the best of my abilities, but when that went on to others in the team, that was quite surprising to them because they thought my answers were quite vague, which is very true. I do not have the technical expertise which they did, and the support that I got back from them was quite uh, reassuring for me because they helped me guide through all of the answers, all the technical bits that I needed to put in. And this comes from uh, Chris Eason, especially, as well as Surjit who's our team principal and team leader. Both of them, along with many others whom I would take a really long time to name, have given me a ton of support and encouragement to keep applying and keep trying and essentially iron myself out um, to essentially write good applications and be a good representative of the racing team.
That's amazing. I mean, especially because most people don't realize that racing is a team sport and
Exactly.
not just a one-man sport.
Yeah.
So to see that there was so much teamwork and the support that you received as well
Hmm.
is not only great to see from the outside, but it's also reassuring for anyone else who wants to, probably be in that position
Yeah.
later in the future as well. So in terms of Marla again, what was the reaction like within the team when you got to know that they chose you from possibly a lot of other applicants?
Um, we were all really, really happy. We were ecstatic essentially when we heard of the news. Um, because again going back to the um, to the selection process they had, the second part was an interview at their facility, and which was quite interesting and quite scary for me personally because I've never been in that situation before.
Yeah.
This was also before I had ever had an interview for an industry placement or internship. So it
Mm.
was quite a new experience for me. And going into the speaking to those people, answering their questions regarding the team's morals, the team's aims, goals, and where we see ourselves in the upcoming future. That was quite an experience to have, and even just seeing their facility, what they have to offer. I feel like the team has got a few surprises up their sleeve in the upcoming years to follow.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have to go to the interview alone or did you have anyone with you?
Yeah, so we had a whole team there. So we had a team of leaders. So there were the electrical leaders were there. We also had Surgeon there as well.
Hmm.
So we had a whole range of people going in to essentially represent their part and their specialty. Myself as a sponsorship manager, representing what the team has to offer and what we can gain from them as well.
Mm. Just one last question. I don't know if I can ask this or not, or if you can answer it or not. But in what way do Marla support the team? So obviously, apart from the fund, do they possibly help with any technical areas in terms of the powertrain and stuff like that?
Yeah, definitely they do. I can't remember everything, but they do have a whole list of things that they help with, especially within the motor and the powertrain department. So the team has some goals to essentially switch over back to their four-wheel drive powertrain in the near future.
Hmm.
And we are working very closely with Mala to to essentially assure that we are on the right track. And and they're also supporting us with many of their facilities to build up to that level, essentially in the upcoming future.
That's absolutely amazing. And to be able to do that, especially for our aims in terms of the torque vectoring, the four-wheel drive,
Exactly.
and all the new powertrain stuff that is coming into play,
Hmm.
it's going to prove absolutely crucial. And hopefully, this is the one that will push us two steps ahead of everyone else in the
Sure.
competition. Hopefully, especially over the Germans because they have a lot more budget than we do. um, all right, that's amazing. And I think now we'll move on to the new segment that I introduced
Sure.
last week. Thankfully, it didn't get put in the bin like all the previous segments. I had like two other segments that I had
All right.
that I did with Freddie and I think it was Chris
Yeah.
that absolutely went into the bin after that because I just thought no, it's not the quality I wanted. But I think this one has potential to keep going for the future interviews. So obviously, it's boyfriend of the week or girlfriend of the week, either one. It's basically I'm gonna ask Ibrahim who or what. Obviously, you can name more than two
Hmm.
or more than one. So it's who or what was your favorite part of the team over the past week? And it can be anyone, it can be anything off the car, let's say, or it can be anyone related to the team, even like any sponsorship deals that you got through. You want to thank them for the work that they did. So who was your boyfriend or girlfriend of the week?
This is quite an interesting segment that I was not really expecting. If I really have to think within the last week or so, it has to be our brilliant graphic designer, Ryan Andrews. He's done some brilliant work for the team that I cannot unfortunately show you or anyone else yet, but we will very soon see a few posters and graphics coming up within the engineering blocks of the university and surrounding the racing team as a whole, which we're quite excited, as well as our futurely proposed team kit for 2023,
Ooh.
which he's also worked on. So brilliant work to Ryan, and um, hats off to him for this week.
So Ryan is this week's boyfriend of the week. What amazing job done by Ryan. Hopefully, the designs are as good as Ibrahim has hyped them up to be.
Hmm.
If you do want to see the designs, if you do want to see the posters, obviously, head off to the engineering block and
Hmm.
let your eyes feast on what he has to offer. And now we move on to the optional questions.
Sure.
So this is a traditional one that we had, the only one that we had since the start of the show. So we have two different optional questions that Ibrahim had a choice between. The first one was which Formula team do you support and why? And the second one was what's your dream seven-car garage? So which one did you go for?
So I actually went for the first question, which is which Formula One team do you support and why? Um, I have mostly gone through this question because I could not find uh, one off-road car or hypercar that I would choose myself.
That's fair enough.
So yeah, I have gone with a safer option. So, personally speaking, I feel like I am someone you would consider as an avid Formula One enjoyer, who likes to watch and essentially learn about Formula One. Um, and since essentially starting to watch Formula One, so many years ago, I have been supporting McLaren F1. And I know that can raise some eyebrows and some and some smirks in some people's faces, um, because I actually started watching them during the Fernando Alonso era of the
Oh,
Honda cars. So
the second Fernando Alonso era.
the second for no, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah, the second Fernando Alonso along with what's his name? Forgotten. Oh crap.
Stoffel Van Dorn.
Yeah, sorry, Van Dorn. Yeah, yeah. I essentially started watching when Fernando and Van Dorn was there, and I was there to watch that crash that Van Dorn had very conveniently on the barriers of Singapore, which was quite interesting. And also watched the commentary as well to that, which yeah even raised my eyebrows to how beautifully crafted that was, and and we all know how that story turned out to be. But yes, I have been supporting McLaren, mostly because I have been a McLaren fan since growing up, since childhood, and just going to Formula One. I remember the first race I watched. I think it was Hungary 20 2009 or 2010, I think.
Hmm.
So I can't remember exactly, but I was just taken away um, by the noise essentially of the TV, and just just seeing all these cars going around in circles. At that time, it made no sense to me. I was like, "This is stupid," but then, but then reality caught up with me, as I say, and I started to appreciate the sport more and more. And McLaren was the one that I've gone through since. And I know they are in a big slump now. They have been before, and they are at 0 points at the moment as I speak. But I trust the drivers, and I had a lot of faith, and I still do, in the team. And I hope to see them at the best of their abilities, and for Norris to somehow sneak in another podium somehow from the bag, like he has done for the last few years.
That's fair enough. Just like an additional question, just because you support McLaren,
Yeah.
how long do you think it will take for them to get back to where they should be?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, they have their target set to 2020, to 2024 is when they'll finally start to build a car based on the new facilities, and um, that is really when I assume that they will start to ascend back up to to the levels of the last 2 years essentially.
Hmm.
Um, it is quite difficult, I would say, to assume anything in Formula One, as we've seen this year, especially the brilliancy of Aston Martin, and the rise back, essentially the resurrection of Fernando Alonso, which I'm totally here for. I love to see the guy go up into the podiums, um, as many people say, dragging that car to where it should not be.
Okay, I take offense to that. I take offense to that because I'm a massive Aston Martin fan.
All right, okay.
Yeah, the car definitely deserves to be where it is. Anyway,
No, I totally see them getting back there if everything goes well. I feel, they will be back there by 2025, 26, hopefully.
Hopefully.
I will proudly put back on my McLaren merch and walk around campus like the happiest boy in school.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I wish to see that day as well, but for now, enjoy the memes. Um, anyway, so what are your predictions for this season? Don't to McLaren.
Sorry, just
So your predictions. Who do you think is going to win the constructors championship and the drivers championship?
I mean, this is only for people who have actually seen me in labs. They know exactly whom I think it is and whom I secretly support. But in general, I feel like it has to be Red Bull again. There is almost no stopping them from what it looks like from the last two races. Uh, as of Saudi Arabia, but it is F1. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, Ferrari looked really good last year, and they have been memed a lot since. But again, they still have a really good car. It's just a matter of can everything else be put in place? And I would say that almost again stems back to the racing team as well. It's not only about building a brilliant car. You need to have a brilliant crew and a brilliant management in place as well.
no, no, yeah, I definitely agree with that. F1 is it's always very unpredictable. Who are you gunning for the drivers' championship?
I'm actually not very sure of who it's going to be, because as much as I want, well, like as much as it's expected of me to essentially support, for example, Norris and Piastri to be the drivers' championship. That's not really realistic.
No, no,
And so that's why if I am to be a realist, I would have to say Max Verstappen again.
yeah.
But closely second by, I would say it's going to be a tie between George Russell and Sergio Perez, and third would likely be Alonso.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. I think it just tells you how boring this year's Drivers' Championship is and Constructors' Championship is because
Yeah.
every single person that I've come across,
Mm-hmm.
apart from Sorojit, because that was before
Oh,
Formula One
okay.
season started,
Yeah.
every single person was like, it's going to be Red Bull and Max Verstappen.
Yeah.
So the Red Bull guys are ruining this year's F1 season.
I
But at
mean,
least the midfield battles, all right.
no, exactly. And I feel like it really again goes back to if you want to think about Formula One, it like throws you back to like the dominant days of Red Bull before, or with the brilliancies of 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 Seb Vettel and Lewis Hamilton in um his McLaren
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah. That's
in his McLaren and his Merc days of the past for Merc. But I feel like any team really has the chance to win so long as a Red Bull are out of the equation.
just as long as Red Bull are not there.
Yeah.
All right, that was absolutely amazing to hear both about um you and RT and about you supporting McLaren. It was quite funny to be fair. Anyway, let's to conclude the uh today's episode. What are your aims for the season in a PR perspective?
So, aims of the season are really diverse, I would say. Um, as any person from PR would say, we always aim for the best, and I feel like if any team's not aiming for the best, then they really need to step up in my eyes. Racing, in my eyes, is a very competitive sport, and if you don't want to be the best, then you're really going to be pushed back. So that's really the aim, to essentially be better than last season as well.
Mhm.
Last season we had some brilliant events, sponsors who came in and worked with us, and and a lot more, and a lot of support from the university as well, I would say. But this season is more of a transition season in a way. As for example, last year it was Shrija who essentially led PR from top to bottom, and she had done a, an absolute brilliant job. And especially in PR, we cannot say less of her in terms of her work ethic for PR last year. And essentially this year is more of me and Gabor trying to hold up to her accomplishments, and keep our heads high as we learn new things about the team. We learn to take on new roles and learn to take on new problems that we've not faced before. But it really is a learning curve, and I feel like from how we started at the start of the season in September, essentially, um, the team has grown a lot, and especially myself and Gabo, we have gone from team members who were used to essentially knowing what to do to now being the ones facilitating what needs to be done, making plans and setting out tasks and delegating them to people who would do best in them.
Mhm.
Also taking on responsibility, I feel like is something that I personally have learned a lot more this season, just being a part of the management group of the racing team. And it really comes to you essentially seeing that it's very similar to having your own project. I'm sure you know, as someone who's doing your own projects within your course, there's a lot of things essentially when you do your own personal projects, compared to when you're working as a team, and again being the team leader. Those are completely three different perspectives that I've learned, and accustoming myself to those things have been one of the key aims of the season. But for PR as a whole, it's essentially um, networking is something that we really focused on this year, and I feel like we are really on top of that. Another thing is essentially revamping and adding new things to the team, essentially growing up to the levels of, as you said, the Germans teams, which have a lot more budget than us. For example, this season we have successfully um, properly kickstarted our website, as well as a Wikipedia page for the team, which was not there before. Um, and it's essentially completing projects like this and and taking very large and ambitious objectives and breaking it down to smaller chunks, which we can do over a long period of time, making it more manageable and learning to accomplish those achievements which may otherwise seem impossible, and really just growing as a team. Last year, PR was significantly smaller, there and this year, in comparison, it's a lot larger, and that comes with its goods and bads. Managing a smaller team, which is more dynamic, is sometimes a lot easier compared to a larger team. But I would say splitting the work with Gabor has really helped, and it's really taught me a lot about not being the only one, almost in a way, calling all the decisions and making it in a way that's viable and rational for everyone to understand and follow.
That's absolutely amazing. Well, thank you very much for taking your time and coming to do this interview today.
So
I hope you managed to achieve everything you wanted to achieve in the near
sure,
future, and you managed to increase the quality of the PR team more than it was last year.
I have taken the initiative. I would say myself and Gabor, but we are not the ones to judge. But I feel like the PR team was in a great place when we started, and my hope is only that we have only grown since.
That's amazing. I think I'd say you have,
Thank you.
from what I can see from the outside. Well, thank you very much, and good luck for the future.
Thank you too, and good luck to you too.